Hi guys, welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about how to become a psychologist. I am not a clinical psychologist, but I am a business psychologist, and before I became a business psychologist, I was looking into being a clinical psychologist, so that's why I kind of know what to look for. So the first thing is there are different types of psychologists. There are clinical psychologists, business psychologists, school psychologists, educational psychologists, and I'm sure there's more psychologists. I just recently learned that there is such a thing called a color psychologist, which specializes in color's effect on human behavior, and I mean the color of paint and things like that. But I'm focusing on clinical psychology right now, how to become a clinical psychologist, because when people think about psychologists, that's what they think about. And so when people ask that question, that's usually what they are referring to. So the first thing that you need to know is that you will be needing to go to graduate school. If you do not have an undergraduate degree, you need that first. And so if you're a high school student, you're thinking about being a psychologist, first thing you need to think about is how much school do you want to do, because you will need a bachelor's degree and you'll need a graduate degree, and your graduate degree program can take anywhere from 4 to 8 to 10 years depending on what your degree is. So if you are trying to get a doctorate, which is what you need to be a clinical psychologist, you are looking at a PhD, which is a doctor of philosophy, or a PsyD, which is a doctor of psychology. The PhD takes longer typically. You will have to be in school for 4 to 10 years, depending on how long it takes you to write your dissertation. It takes so long because of that dissertation piece. They really want you to focus on research, how to be a researcher. And I did a video about this in a different video, but that was mostly focused on IO psychology, but the same kind of things apply here too. When you're thinking about being a clinical psychologist, the major state schools, they have PhD clinical programs, and those programs are designed to be 4+ years because it depends on how long it takes you to finish your PhD. The plus side about it though is that you don't usually have to pay for those programs because there's only a few spots. So they take maybe 5 to 8 people a year into the program. And the reason they do that is because they give you teaching assistantships, graduate assistantships. So you're kind of working for your education because you're working as a teaching assistant or a graduate assistant. And in that way, you're getting a stipend, and your school is also paying for your education. So, and I think that they also offer free graduate housing, or maybe you have to pay for that. I'm not really sure how that works. On the flip side, if you're looking at a PsyD, you're looking at a program that's 5 years. That's pretty consistent across the board. And the reason it's so much shorter is because they don't focus as heavily on the research as a PhD program. Now, you will learn research principles, you will learn how to conduct research, read it and put it into practice, but they really focus more on practice rather than research in the PsyD programs, and you do have to pay for those programs. They do accept some programs accept fewer people, but they accept on average more than a state school would for their PhD programs. They probably accept around 20-something students a year, which is still not very much, but it's way more than 8. So your chances of getting in are higher because they accept more students. You want to think about, is the school that you're looking at APA accredited? And what that means is that the American Psychological Association has looked at that school's clinical psychology doctoral curriculum and approved it for practice. So people who graduate from those schools can apply to become licensed after they take and pass their board exams. If your school is not licensed or is not approved by the APA, or the program is not approved by the APA, don't go to that school. Or if you already are in that school and you've made that mistake, transfer to a different school immediately, because you're not going to be able to practice as a clinical psychologist if you don't go to a school that is APA accredited. So my tips for you if you are interested in being a clinical psychologist, is to really do the research about the schools that you're interested in. Make sure they're APA accredited. Figure out what the entrance exam is, if there is a GRE exam that you need to take, and what is the score in order to enter the program. If you don't need to take a GRE, GRE is a graduate entrance exam. It's like the ACT or the SAT, but it's for graduate school. If you don't need to take a GRE, then figure out what else it is that you need to do in order to get in, what is going to make you competitive. One thing I suggest doing is calling the admissions office and asking them for tips for like, what do they look for in students? They'll be more than happy to talk to you about it. And think about that. So if you are in high school, you have several years to think about it. If you're in college, you don't have as long to think about it, but you're still ahead of the game. There are some people who decide halfway through their career that they want to switch to be a psychologist, and so they go back to school. So for those people, I obviously would suggest doing a PsyD because it's faster. If you are like a high school student or a college student and you've got several years ahead of you, then obviously you can choose a PhD, you can choose a PsyD. It really depends on what you want to do in your clinical practice. And my tip of caution came about the APA accreditation came because of my research online of like looking at different schools and then seeing what people say on different like forums about like schools. And apparently there were some students that I read about that like went to a school that wasn't APA accredited and their degree was completely useless, which sucks because can you imagine spending 5 years and thousands of dollars to find out that you can't practice as a clinician? That would suck. So a word of caution, make sure and to find out if your degree is your program is APA accredited, most programs will say that on their website, but you can also look on the apa.org website and they will show you clinical programs that are approved by them across the entire country. So anyways, I hope that helped you. If you have questions, feel free to comment below and like and subscribe. Thanks. Bye.